Hey guys, this is Rahul here and I am welcome you all to my course Building Full Stack app using Spring Boot and Angular, which is an immersive learning experience which is meticulously crafted for developers eager to master the art of full stack e-commerce application development with Spring Boot and Angular. And mind you, this Spring Boot application is built out with 3.2.0 version, and of course that it is on top of Java21 and Angular 16 itself. So this is going to embark on a transformative journey, and you will harness that the power of synergy to of a Spring Boot's robust backend and capabilities of Angular's dynamic front-end framework. So this is going to be a 16-hour course, and in this you will transition from grasping core concepts to applying industry standard design patterns itself. So before I talk about this particular course, let me show you in detail like what it is going to be and how you will be building with me alongside, and what you will be building from scratch here. And this is just the landing page which you are seeing that, and that is going to be in a Sports Center website which is hosted on 4200 port, which is the default port from the Angular site. And this is going to be a store experience for you, and this is what it is going to be like. This is how this is coming up, and this is you will be building right from the scratch, right? And this is the solution experience which you are going to see with me, and this is going to be definitely a journey for you with me, because you are going to learn a lot of things, and right from the scratch itself, like from data sheet setup, from designing the page, and then what you are going to see is like from designing the API, the backend strategy, how you will be serving the page, what will be the API strategies, and and plethora of things which you will be wiring up together. And of course you will find this really welcome, right? I mean, the session you can find that pretty intensive, right? And that is the place where you can expect like anybody who is having the basic knowledge of a Spring Boot and Angular is good to get started with this one, because I have explained the same in a very deep level, and that understanding is just for this particular course is going to be that I would say the prerequisite for that is going to be is just the basics of Spring Boot, Java, and what you say is that Angular itself. So let's see that like how this is going to be. These are the filtering things, which is how this is working, and you see that at the same time toaster is notification is coming. Let's say if you like to see something which is from Adidas and shoes perspective, so you can likewise see that in case if there is any rackets which is not there. Let's say we have this from your neck, so this is how this is the filtering is going to work. So normal e-commerce site, but that entire thing which is on the latest and the greatest technology itself, and that is what you are going to do that, and that's what I'm showing you, that capabilities of this particular site at the moment, right? So which you will be dealing with right from the ground up with me, and the page through that page is like how you will be going through, and of course from here also you can page through like so this is how this is laid out. Of course you can do search and reset as well. Now let's do some shopping experience here. Let's say I am adding from here one, and let's say I can select something from Nike, and I think football I have already added. Let's add one racket here, and let's try to see this particular detail page here, and let's add it from here, and let's try to come back to that store itself. You can come from this breadcrumb itself, and that also you will be learning like how to do that. And let's add some shoes here, right? And whatsoever we can do that, like a kit bag kind of thing. Let's try to see what is there in the kit bag, and let's add 2 kit bags for this. So obviously you can increment the quantity, and from here you can go into that. And if I just come back to the store, is there anything which we can think of adding here? So I believe like quite a bit we have added. So this is what it is going to be for these different categories like which we are having. And of course you can increment and decrement that quantity from here as well, like so the price accordingly is getting updated over here. So this is what you are going to create from the scratch itself. You can remove that item from here also, like if you don't like to do that. So now let's go ahead and do this checkout. So if I just click on this checkout, so since I'm not logged in here, so this is the place wherein Spring security will come into play, and you see that's the return URL which is holding back the address, like it needs to land upon successful login onto that checkout route. For that, the sub page is going to be the address. So this is the sub routes which in from Angular perspective is going to come into play, right? So if I just enter my password over here, so I believe this is my password, and I'm hoping that I have entered correctly, and this is what you are saying, and this is what you need to see. And I'll just add one from the address manager, any of that, and let's say this is Google Address Manager, by the way, and you can just do next, and you see that the shipment thing which you can see here, right? So any of this you can toggle here. You can see like based on the number of days of delivery that the pricing matters, and it also differs, right? So let's say I will stick to that fastest one, which is the FedEx, and review, and that is where you can just say thank you. And you can notice here, right, so this 6 is going to be omitted from here because you are done with your checkout piece, and that is where it is done, right? So and that's it, right? So this is how that your user experience is going to be. And of course, once you log out, right, so you can the token will be deleted from that application storage, which is for your local storage browser itself, and again you will be having to get started from the scratch in case if you like to do so, right? So this is it, right? So this is in a nutshell what I'm talking is, and let's have a solution overview for this one. And as you can see here, right, so this is how I laid out the structure for this one, and this is also entirely containerized. When I say containerized, you see that Docker Compose file which is going to take care for your MySQL setup, which you can see here, right? So and the another one is for the Redis setup, and I'm also persisting the volume so that let's say if your application restarts, so at least your data will remain intact. And this is your data SQL, which the schema which you will be putting into the MySQL. But I'm not installing anything natively, like say Redis or MySQL natively on my machine. Rather, I am relying on this Docker Compose file. And as you know that in these modern days of development, Docker and Kubernetes go hand in hand, and that is the precursor for the microservice course, right? And that is where in my next course, which is the microservice course, you will get to see me using these technologies like Docker per service is going to be mandatory. So that's why I have been providing this the Docker stuff right away from the beginning from this particular full stack course, so that you will have certain experience of that, and you will get to see that how do you do that, right? So what we need to do here is we certainly need to come to the terminal into this particular folder, and we just need to do Docker Compose up -d, and that will eventually is going to do the setup for you. So you just need to then what you need to do is like you just need to come to the main application, right, is here, and you just need to run play the button here, right? So which is already running, and as you can see, right, so this is already we are having this running. So if I just see this place in here, right, so let me just first of all come to the terminal, and rather than that, right, so let me just show you this guy first of all, the folder structure of this, right? So this is that e-commerce setup. There is a small typo which you can see that double O has come instead of double M, so you can avoid that. So now let's focus on this folder structure. So the config related stuff, let's say my config, security config, and the cause config is obviously that filter chain and everything is part of this config stuff, right? And then we have the controllers, wherein we have this auth controller, basket controller, and the product controller. Then we have the JPA entities which is getting inside this the basket. You see that first of all, so this is that Redis hash wherein the NoSQL comes into the picture, so that's the Redis hash is going to come into play. But if you see that MySQL stuff, you have this JPA entity going with this Lombok annotations which is in there, right? So this is what you will be having that, and of course the relationship for that also is being this is how this is set up initially, right? So this is what it is you are going to have. Then we have a specific exception handlers also, like custom exception handler and the product not found exception. So this is how you will be doing this generic stuff out there. Then we have this model, that's the model which is getting exchanged over the wire from the UI perspective. Let's say the entity which you are saving as in JPA entity back to the SQL is going to be exchanged over the wire via this model, and this is where your builder pattern will come into play and into the service when you are doing this. So you will be using this model mapping there. Then we have this repository in place, let's say basket repository and all. Like if there is anything extension is going to be needed, let's say we have certain custom queries into that product repositories where I have this custom dedicated methods over there out of the box which is given by the JPA. So these are the custom queries which you will be implementing as well. Then we have that security aspect wherein you will be charts implementation you will be doing from the Spring security perspective, via which that filter is going to come into play to to apply the filter chain, which is going to be that the recent standard from the Spring Boot perspective itself. So these are the things which we are going to apply that things, and this is where user detail and users detail service is going to come into play. And that is where I am just using this chart helper also to generate secrets for me. There are n number of ways to do that, but this is the most basic way, because in my microservices course which I am going to unleash, this is going to be Okta authority, wherein you will see me doing some more specific and advanced thing, because security itself is a very big topic which cannot be covered into one FullStack course itself. So it needs a dedicated course itself, which you will get to see me doing in some time itself. But I'm just giving you an example like how to wire up the things in a nutshell, and this is just an example for that. And let's say if you just look at that for the instance product service itself, so this is what the interface is going to be, and that is the implementation perspective which you are seeing here, right? So you see that how these things are getting wired. And when I was talking about that let's say from the mapping perspective, so this is the mapping perspective, the builder pattern which I was talking about, is this is where the models are actually exchanged over the wire, right? And which is getting talked about these entities. Let's say you have n number of models and is having little less number of properties sitting there. So this is where you can do the mapping, and that is how this mapping is happening, and that is where the data is getting exchanged over the wire, and that is how this is working. So this is from that server side perspective, from the Spring Boot side. And of course from resources perspective, what I have is from application YAML is everything which you have seen already is into the YAML perspective is there, rather than the usual pattern which we used to follow. So I actually keep a structure YAML way, because this looks pretty neat to me. Like it actually gives me the namespace kind of feature, like I can collapse this entire thing and it shows me the how many keys are there. I can individually look into that, like okay, this data source application JPA and data at this particular level, and then data source level is this thing. So let's say I can collapse accordingly at the child level as well, right? So that's the flexibility of this one. But mind you, this is this is space sensitive and case sensitive. So make sure that whatever you are doing here, you are taking actually this gives you an IntelliSense as well, kind of a squiggly. I actually forgot to put when it was giving this squiggly, I looks like overdid here, right? I didn't do this e-commerce then. Anyways, while creating that application, you can ignore this part, and you can right way just do the typo. I may refactor this later, but I'm just pointing out at the beginning itself. And then we have this Angular application which you can see here, right? So this is what this is like. This is the modular perspective which you can see here, right? These are the modules, like different modules wherein account, let's say login, register functionality is there, and its related service which is already part of that. Likewise basket, we have the checkout module which we you have already seen, like we have entering this address, shipment and the review page, and that's how. So this is completely modularized, and it's also embracing that lazy loading feature, which in this case means like as in when that particular module is getting activated, then only that required files will be loaded. So this is going to be a slim and trim version of your application, and that is what we are embracing here. And like I mentioned, right, so this is having all the latest and the greatest stuff baked into this particular application, and that is what I wanted to show you, right? So this is it. I believe like you are guys going to enjoy this 16 plus hour of session, and there are a few more modules is going to be added into that. Let's say that payment link and the other things. But for the time being, what I've done is this is as I've added this as part of challenge as an assignment part in this particular course itself, so that you guys can also complete a few things on your own, and you can come up with your version, and you can just ping me your bit pages, so that I can just have a quick glimpse of that. So with that being said, let's join me into this particular course and into this exciting journey. See you on board. Thanks for joining me.